Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. Today, we're going to be talking about a sorceress skill, which is synonymous with just about every single sorceress that is ever created, because most sorceresses at least have 1 point into warmth, and if not more. Now, warmth is a very interesting ability because it is also a very misunderstood ability. Despite the fact that it tells you what it does, most people don't really understand how warmth works, and I'd like to go over that today, and we'll talk about it together. Now, warmth, as you can see, says it is a passive ability that increases the rate at which you recover mana uh, your maximum level reached. So basically, your maximum mana determines how much mana you regenerate. Now, the speed at which you regenerate mana is, of course, increased by warmth, and the more points you have in it, the higher the percentage goes. It starts out at a very low percentage, at only, 30%, and as you increase it, it goes up quite nicely from 30 to 42, 42 to 54, 54 to 66, 66 to 78, 78 to 90, 90 to 102, 102 to 114, 114 to 126, and so forth and so on, until you get all the way up to a pretty massive amount of regeneration at 294% at level 23. Now, of course, as you beef up your plus to skills, you will notice that it goes up much higher than that, and I can get it up, to a relatively high percentage. And get your minds out of the gutter. I can get it up to a relatively high percentage, but getting the warmth to a very high percentage does not necessarily give me good regeneration. And this is something that I'd like to go over with you all today. So if you are a sorceress, and even if you're not a sorceress, if you are a character who is trying to get mana regeneration to a relatively high level, maybe you're using an insight, maybe you have several pieces of equipment that have increased mana regeneration on them, and you just don't understand why your mana regeneration is always so low, I'm going to go over with you today on how we can increase mana regeneration on a character. Now, one of the things that I'm going to show you is a chart for Diablo 2, and this is on the Diablo wiki, and we're going to take a look at this together, shall we? Let me pull this over here. So when you take a look at the mana regeneration chart, what you're going to notice is that we have a relatively high percentage over here of 350%, which is, of course, higher than the 306% that we currently have on our sorceress. But with a relatively low mana pool of only 35, we are only regenerating 1.3 mana per second. 1.3 mana per second is, of course, really slow. If we had a relatively, costly spell that could maybe cost like 8 mana a cast, it would take us, like almost 7 seconds to regenerate enough mana for another cast, and that could be deadly in the middle of combat. And notice also that on the other end of the spectrum, if we are at 0% mana, and we have 0% regeneration, and we are at 1600 in our mana pool, we have a regeneration rate of 13.3. So the higher our mana pool is, the more our regeneration increases. But of course, we don't just want 0% mana regeneration and a high mana pool. We want a mix of both. Because as you can see, when you travel downward in a diagonal fashion, through this particular chart, you will notice that the higher our mana is, the more our base regeneration is, and the higher our base regeneration is, the higher our percentage increases that base. So for instance, 250% with only 200 mana is only 5.8, but 250% mana regeneration with 600 mana is 17.4 per second. And as you can see, the more mana you have, the better your mana regeneration works. And this is one of the big misnomers in the Diablo 2 community, is that everybody will tell you, do not put points into energy. Nobody puts points into energy. Don't put any points into energy. But what they don't tell you is that while you're leveling up your character, putting points into energy is not a bad thing. Your character gets mana every single time it levels up. So on a sorceress particularly, if we were to go to the sorceress's stat sheet, which is, let's see, there we go. So the sorceress gets a bonus of +2 mana per level. So by the time she reaches level 99, if you ever get to 99, she's going to have her base mana, which is, of course, 35, plus 2 mana per level, every single level up to level 99. So she's going to have 98 times 2 plus 35, which means that she's going to be at 231 mana in her pool. And then, of course, you also can calculate in other items, like any item that will give you a bonus to your mana, plus to maximum mana, like silkweaves, soges, and so forth and so on. And so by the time you reach a relatively high level, you can usually have a relatively high amount of mana, particularly easily, from utilizing several pieces of equipment. The problem comes in is that when you're leveling up your character, your mana pool is not high. You haven't gotten this level up based on mana, your level up mana as you've gone along. So you haven't gotten that +2 every single level yet. You're only maybe like level 10 or level 15 or level 20. And believe it or not, a couple points in energy or a piece of equipment that gives plus to mana can have a huge effect on your mana regeneration because warmth is not enough by itself. Having maximum warmth will not allow you to have a good amount of mana regeneration. Having an insight polearm with meditation on it will not allow you to have a good amount of regeneration all by itself. You need a relatively nice mana pool to go along with the regeneration to make it worthwhile. If you are a melee character, if you are a character like an Amazon that has a relatively small mana pool already, maybe you only have like 40 mana or something like that, Insight is not going to do a whole lot for you because it is going to only provide you with the regeneration portion and not the maximum mana portion. Now, I don't recommend dumping all your points into energy, but what I do recommend is that when you are leveling up, a couple points in energy can go a long way to solving regeneration issues until later on when you can respec and take those points out of energy once you've gotten the right equipment, once you've leveled up a little bit and gotten your +2 mana level up bonus. The other interesting thing about warmth is that there is actually an item in the game that contains warmth as an O skill. So if you wanted to have warmth on a character that is not a sorceress, there is one item in the game. It is a rune word. It is a rune word, and it is called Enlightenment, I believe. I'm not 100% sure on that. Let me double check. I recently just do a ton of videos on all these items too, and I should know. I should know. Yes, it is Enlightenment. So Enlightenment actually gives you +1 warmth. Now, the +1 warmth that Enlightenment gives you is not going to be brought up by +2 other skills. So for instance, if you have, like, say for instance, you put this on a paladin for some reason. You put on Enlightenment because maybe you wanted to add warmth to your repertoire. Anything that is plus paladin skills is not going to affect warmth. It is only going to be affected by things that are plus all skills, not plus paladin skills. So it has to be like a Mara's Kaleidoscope instead of a +2 paladin necklace. Now, when you have it on a sorceress, it is affected by sorceress bonuses. And that is the only time it's affected by a non-all-skill item. So, for instance, if you put on Enlightenment on a sorceress, you would get +3 to warmth. The weird thing is, though, is that I don't know why sorceress in particular would need +1 to her own skill. I always kind of felt like that was a little odd. Sometimes when it comes to these items, I just don't really understand why Blizzard decided to go that particular route. To go, okay, well, let's give the sorceress the skill that she's already going to have 1 point into no matter what. Because I don't know very many sorceresses that don't put at least 1 point into warmth. I think that's pretty much it. Warmth is a rather universal skill, and if you are a sorceress that does not have at least 1 point into warmth, I don't know what to tell you. It is going to make a huge difference in your mana regeneration rate, and quite honestly, it is also useful as a synergy for a couple skills like Blaze and Firewall. Both use warmth as a synergy, as well as Inferno if you wanted to go that route. Just in general, warmth is one of those abilities that makes it into just about every single build, whether you're a cold sorceress, a lightning sorceress, or a fire sorceress, or even if you're a energy shield sorceress. Warmth is going to be an absolute boon for you. And I hope now that you guys know that warmth has a much greater effect as you increase your mana pool, you will try to find a balance between a mana pool, your regeneration rate, and make your character essentially infinite mana. You actually can get to the point where your mana pool will actually regenerate so fast that you won't be able to get rid of your mana quick enough. And it's actually not that difficult. I mean, one of the highest mana cost spells in the game, I believe, is actually Enchant at 25 mana per cast. And at 25 mana per cast, even with 200% faster cast, if you were rocking, say, 800 mana with a 350% regeneration, that would be a total of 29.9 mana every second. So you would not be able to drain your mana while fast casting Enchant. Right now, my mana regeneration is, let's see, I'm at 306%.
Evil beware.
And I have a total mana of 421. So I am looking at somewhere along the lines of about 14 mana. I want to say about 14 mana per second. So I should theoretically be able to overcome my mana regeneration by spamming Enchant. So let's see here. Does the mana cost go up with it? It does go up on Enchant when you level it up. So let's go ahead and cap it out at 48 mana cost per cast. So as you can see here, I have 421 mana. And I can burn my mana relatively quickly, but I am gaining a relatively large amount of mana back per second of 14 per second. Now, if I were to increase my mana even further, you will notice that I will get most of that back much quicker. So let's see how much we can bring our mana up. I should have a couple items in here, at least that should have bonuses to mana on them. I'm pretty sure I have at the very least, I have a Soge. That's right. I got 2 Soges. Both Soges have increased maximum mana by 25%. You can see that I go up from 421 to 661, which is certainly a very nice bonus there. And I believe I also get a bonus for wearing Talrashes. Go to 690. And I don't know if I have any gloves laying around that have any kind of mana on them, but I guess not. Got no shields. I got no shields to hold me up. Boom, boom, boom.
Where can I take you?
So now I'm at 690 mana for my maximum, and my regeneration rate has gone up a little bit to 354%. So my regeneration rate at this point, with 354% and a mana of 700, is going to be about 25 per second. And 25 per second is certainly not enough to overcome the massive 52 mana cost on Enchant, but you will notice that I can fight it much better. And as my mana regenerates, you will see I'm just chunking mana back up. Much quicker than I ever was before. And if I utilize an actual ability that, for instance, like Fireball, I could potentially spam Fireballs for infinity. Because, quite honestly, my mana regeneration should be more than enough to handle an infinite number of fireballs. Same thing with something like Teleport. Teleport is also an ability which, if you have your mana regeneration set up properly, you can essentially cast infinitely without any kind of degradation to your mana. And I have several characters, especially energy shield sorceresses, that have this kind of effect going on, where they can essentially keep spamming their teleport basically forever. I hope that I've given you guys a little bit of an idea of how to properly balance your mana regeneration, and now that you have a better idea of how mana regeneration works, maybe you'll consider some items that have bonuses to mana on them. Maybe you'll consider items like silk weaves or sojas in your build to get your mana higher, so that you don't have to worry about the regeneration as much. And when you can finally free yourself from having to be dependent on an insight polearm mercenary, maybe you could move on to something better like Infinity, or just build your characters differently. I will have the actual calculation down in the description of this video, and a link to the mana regeneration wiki, so that you can take a look for yourself and get a better idea of the formula. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, and keep watching.